Happy Mother's Day and welcome to Hearsay. I'm Chris Tritico.
And I'm Brian Clary.
713-212-5772, 713-212-5772. If you have a legal question on any legal topic, well, guess what? Brian and I have an answer. No, if you missed that very, very intriguing discussion with Lieutenant Commander Swift, check the podcast out tomorrow because that was really interesting, and I learned a lot about that.
I had a lot of misconceptions about what the Supreme Court did, and I guess that's why, as lawyers, we should have read the opinion.
Maybe we should have read the opinion, yeah. But it was very intriguing, very interesting to learn exactly what happened on that decision, and that it was purely an issue of presidential authority and not one of the Bill of Rights.
Yeah, and I think since it's his Mother's Day, I would like to say a very special good Mother's Day wish to both my mom, who is at my house watching my kids, while my wife, who's a great mom too, got to have a night out on the town. So
there you go. That's very
good. In the hotel, and I love her very much.
And we didn't do it in the first hour because we had the guest, but I echo that. And everybody ought to go and spend some time with their mom today.
Yeah, and even if they're out of town, call them. Send them something.
I said it yesterday on my show and on my Saturday show that we take one day a year to honor that person who dedicated their entire life to the well-being of another person.
No, I honor every day of the year as the Ten Commandments tell me to do. Right, Mom? That's going to be our next call.
Never mind. What? Never mind. Go see your mom.
Hey, one thing I wanted to bring up was, since we had a lieutenant commander on, when I was law partners with you represented a lieutenant commander in the Navy, and she set up a what they called then a Friend of the Navy tour.
Guest of the Navy.
You got to go out to San Diego and fly out
100 miles into the ocean and land on an aircraft carrier.
And then you catapulted off of that.
Catapulted off of it the next morning. The neatest thing I've ever done.
I got the little bit lower class version of it.
Well, since you had nothing to do.
I got to go out on a rowboat in the ship channel. No, what I did is I got to, mine was great too. I got to take a tender boat out to the USS San Jacinto, which is an Aegis class cruiser. The cruisers that launch the Tomahawk missiles in Desert Storm, and sail back in on that into the ship channel. And that San Jacinto gave a salute to the battleship Texas, and they both fired cannons at each other. It was pretty cool.
At each other?
Oh yeah, I don't think there's anything in them. At least I don't think so. But anyway, it was a very interesting thing, and that whole program, which was really for the media, but we got to glom onto it, ended when they had that unfortunate guest of the Navy tour with a submarine
in
surfaced
Hawaii,
into a fishing boat,
killed a bunch of Japanese.
Boat. And so so we didn't hit Lieutenant Commander Swift.
And those Japanese were probably wailing anyway.
And I'm not sure if we asked Lieutenant Commander Swift for one in his current position.
He's only got a week to set it up. So.
You could. Here's a Friend of the Navy. Go out to the battleship Texas today. And
he wouldn't. We're going to take your calls. He wouldn't say this on the air, but I think it is horrible that this guy, he got assigned. He didn't ask for this. He was assigned to represent Hamdan. He took that case up. He won it. And I'm telling you, as a result of that, he was passed over for promotion and his career ended. And that is wrong. That is absolutely wrong.
If that is the case, that is abominable.
Yeah.
I don't know that that's the case. I don't know what his track record is, but when you are assigned to do something as a lawyer, you don't get assigned. It's just like when a court appoints you to represent someone in a criminal case here. I don't think you always get the greatest representation through a public defender, but your obligation is to represent zealously your client. It is your obligation to do so. And if you're a United States JAG officer, you're supposed to go in there and do the best job you can, and he represented his client.
He certainly did a good job. I don't think it helped his career any when he told the United States Supreme Court that the president is acting like King George III. And that is a direct quote.
That is a quote. I saw that in an article I read yesterday about this
and that might
trial.
I've called him George II and his dad George I, but I'm not in the military.
But you never called him George III.
Well, he's not George III.
George to the nth degree. That probably didn't help his standing any, but he did what he was supposed to do for his client, and I think we can all debate the outcomes and whether the Supreme Court's right or wrong, and what will happen if Justice Kennedy is replaced, and But at the end of the day, the guy did what he was supposed to do, and if that was the cause of him failing to get promoted on 2 occasions, then that is shameful.
It's horrible, and I'm just going to go on record right now and say that President Bush did that all by himself.
Okay, well, I hope your IRS audit goes well.
President Bush passed him over for promotion because he called him King George.
He could have made him a U.S. attorney and fired him.
713-212-5772. That was good. Hey, Tom, you're on Talk Radio 950. Good morning.
Yes, Chris and Brian, thanks for taking my call.
You bet.
I'm an executor for an estate, and one of the heirs is a 8-year-old boy. He's going to receive somewhere $14,000-$15,000. My question is about how can I put this money with someone who'll take care of it for him, maybe for his college education. His dad loves him a lot, but he's got some creditors after him. He's talking to bankruptcy lawyers, things like that.
Okay, there's several options for you,
okay.
And I think the easiest is to set up an irrevocable trust that nobody has the right to take until this child is of an age to handle it on his own.
But can you do that with just like $14,000?
You can. Now, what you're going to have to do is look for a bank that's not going to fee this thing into oblivion. Banks, they're called bank and trust, but it's only trust if you have, millions. Then it's we don't really want your business anymore.
Yeah, I thought they were at least $250,000 to do this.
We as an ad litem for children in courts, I have had smaller sums than that actually either annuitized or placed into a trust.
Right now,
but an annuity may be a better way to do it unless you think that the child's going to need access to that money on a shorter term.
Now you can also look into, because is it going through the probate court here in Harris County?
No, it's a different county.
All right. Well, one of the other things you can do is have your lawyer who's helping you with the probate, have him look into placing it in the registry of the court of the district clerk of every county has an account where they hold funds for children.
But I strongly recommend that you look at other alternatives.
I do
That's
too.
A very, very low interest rate. It just depends on the need of the child. If you think that the child's going to need access to it, then the trust may be the only way to go, because if you turn it over to the parents, you're not sure what's going to happen to that.
Yeah, and I understand that possibly if the parent didn't handle it properly, he may rightfully have a claim on me when he gets to be 18 years old.
Well, he could, and that's why I'm suggesting the best way to do it is a trust where nobody has access to it
unless you go through the trustee.
Unless you go through the trustee.
But one other way, if you think that reasonably speaking, this child is going to be raised by their parents, they're going to provide for him like other families do every day, then the one way to look at this would be to put it into an annuity where it can be distributed. You can have multiple distributions starting at 18, maybe one midway through college if the child's on a college track. And that, I don't think you can extend it out forever, but you can have those distributions meted out on a periodic basis. And believe me, an annuity is not the best investment in the world, but it's a way to make sure that the child doesn't get access to every penny of it at age 18, when you and I both know that not the best decisions are made when you're at that age. So you can have partial distributions every couple of years, hopefully that's inspiring this child to go to further his education.
But y'all both are saying that this irrevocable trust might, if I can find a bank that would do it for that amount.
You just got to watch out for the fees. You just got to make sure that the trustee isn't withdrawing money from this for the privilege of having that trust there. And you also have to make sure, whether you're going with an annuity or any other investment modality or a trust, to understand where that money is going to be invested too. So you got to be real careful that it's placed with A1 companies, best rated companies, so that it's got the full faith and credit of a institution that's going to be there and how they're going to invest it. You don't want this child's money put in real high risk funds.
Right.
Okay.
All right. Have you got time for one more?
Real quick.
I got the family has some mineral rights on about 30 acres in rural Texas. Is there a way to break those apart so that everybody gets a piece of those?
They will do that. There is, with whatever company the mineral rights are placed on, you're talking about for royalties, right?
Yes.
Every one of those companies has a person or persons that are in the unfortunate business of fracturing these shares. So when someone dies and they had which is the person who died probably had a fracture too. So you can end up having a 100% interest in something at the end of the day. But what you need to do is, however the assets of the estate were to be meted out, The probate order will show that. And if that one person who had, let's say, a 20% interest in the royalties has 6 heirs, then they're all going to share 1/6 of that 20%, and that's exactly what the people at the company that the leases are placed with will handle that.
So that would be an order of the probate court that's probating this estate.
That's right. And if you want to, one preliminary thing you might want to do is contact that company to find out who that point person is. You're going to need that. And secondly, to make sure so you don't have to go back to the court for orders of clarification, make sure that you know what that individual expects to see in that order, so that when they're reacting to that and they're relying on that to further fracture this share, that it's in a form that they're going to find acceptable, so they don't send you back to the court for further orders.
Okay.
All right. Thanks a lot.
You guys.
Have a
Take
great
care.
day.
Bye.
117 on Talk Radio 950. This is Hearsay. All right, if you're on hold, stay there.
Of knowledge.
713-212-5772. I got some emails I promised some people that we would get to today. Hey, this is from George.
Is that how you began?
Yeah, hey.
Oh.
I have an issue with property taxes. Back in 1995,
Doesn't everybody?
Yeah, I signed for a trailer house for my daughter, and then they sold it to a fellow in 2000 when they bought a house. But to show that no good deed goes unpunished, neither one of them took it out of my name, and this guy has never paid the taxes. Several years ago, they first contacted me, and in turn I told them I wasn't paying his taxes. So things have continued, and he still hasn't paid any taxes, and I got a letter for a trial date in June. So my question is, do I care if they file for taxes? Yes, you should. I assume my homestead is untouchable. I don't know if you can assume that in a taxing situation, although it's not your home, it's a trailer home. And I don't care if they take the trailer house. Oh, by the way, over time I have talked to the county and the state and tried to get this straightened out, but they are petty bureaucrats and just impossible to deal with. Maybe they could just, maybe they're just stupid, I think is what he said. All right, George, here's the deal. You have been sued. I do not suggest that you don't do anything about that. Doing nothing means that you will have a judgment entered against you, and it's going to be even harder to fix this problem once a judgment is entered, because then nobody's going to care.
And once that judgment becomes final, then, and let's say they do go seize that trailer and it doesn't satisfy the debt, you're going to be responsible for
that's right.
any amount that's over that.
George, I think there's a way to fix this because you didn't own it anymore. The fact that the title was not transferred out of your name is indicia that you still own it, but it doesn't mean that you still own it, and it doesn't mean that you're responsible for those taxes. But you need to get proactive. You can't just say you're a bunch of petty bureaucrats and I don't want to talk to you anymore, because that's going to end up costing you a heck of a lot of money. So what I want you to do is call the lawyer of your choice who deals with property tax issues, okay? That's what you're looking for. Property tax issues. This is kind of a specialized little field. I wouldn't just call anybody. You know, my brother's a lawyer and he sued a doctor one time. Well, that guy ain't going to know how to do this. Yeah. And so get a property tax lawyer, do it next week so that they can put the evidence together and go to that trial date with you and fix this problem so it doesn't cost you a heck of a lot more money or destroy your credit, or put a lien on your home.
I'm not sure he's received a trial date. I think he may have been served with the lawsuit.
Well,
he's got 20 days to answer.
In tax court, you get served with your trial date.
I know, but he needs to answer that suit or get someone to answer that if he's been served with it right away. The other thing you can do is hopefully there's a bill of sale or something that's going to show counter evidence that this is still in your name, and try to get that title changed so you don't have this going forward.
Get some evidence that you can show the judge that you don't own this thing anymore and when you sold it. And then you can start unraveling the problem and get the title out of your name. Good luck, George.
You know, and last year, in my office, I've got a separately surveyed piece of property I use for parking lot. It's got what they refer to as quicksand on it. It's got real loose, wet sand on one part. You can't build on it. And my property taxes on that lot went from $7,500 to $17,500. A $10,000 increase on there. I protested it last year. I lost at the original. I went to the board. I won at the board. They returned it back. I got my valuation last week for that property. They put it right back where it was. So what they're trying to do is a battle of attrition. If they think they drag you down there enough, you'll just give up and quit doing it.
Well, they don't know you. 713-212-5772. Hey, Anthony, you're on Talk Radio 950. Good morning.
Good morning, Chris and Brian. Thanks a lot. I'm here in a Galleria area apartment. I'm on the second floor, and the person directly below me owns a very tiny little dog. And I have spoken to her before, asking her to quiet it down, because right around 10 at night it will just start yapping and barking.
Yeah, you can't talk to people that own yappy little dogs.
Well, anyway, I this happened again last night, and I don't think she was there, and the dog just went on and on for about 3 hours straight. It also woke me up in the middle of the day yesterday afternoon during a nap.
Uh-huh.
So I spoke to the management office about it, and they said, well, she did pay her pet deposit. It's not an overly large dog, and it is in her residence, and there's not really anything they can do about it. And I'm just thinking, what
about my quiet enjoyment is what you're thinking.
Maybe you should find some of that tainted dog food. I'm just kidding. What you've got is a noise nuisance there, and I think you're in a bad spot. It's not just for apartments. They're in every neighborhood you've got dogs that are going to react, especially if they're outside dogs. They're going to bark at things. They're going to wake the neighbors up. They're going to be a constant problem. If you can't get the management there to move you away from that unit to another spot in the complex, I'm not sure that it's a breach of your lease for them to have a pet that's approved on the premises. Now, you can contact try to say that this is a noise nuisance and see if you can get it abated somehow, but I think you're going to have a tough time.
Yeah, I was afraid that y'all are going to say that. It's just right directly below my bed, and it comes right up into my ear. I wear earplugs, and I'll put the pillows over my head, and it still gets through. So it's just been really, really bad.
Well, it is.
I have the same problem with my wife.
On Mother's Day, you say that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that on Mother's Day.
Yeah. I know that, I don't know, you are having your right to a quiet and peaceful residence intruded upon by a neighbor, and I think you ought to just keep trying to work with management to do it. But I don't know what you do with something's got to give, and that dog is not going to be reformed. So I don't know if you can't get moved somewhere else in the complex. I think you just try to work your way through the end of your lease and move.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate thing. I signed a year lease, and it's not up until next February. So it's like I'm stuck with this until something can be done. But yeah, it's just been a real unfortunate situation.
Well, let me give you a non-legal suggestion.
Don't kill the dog.
No, don't go get the tainted dog food. Sometimes if you can find I call it a noisemaker. I've got an alarm clock that has, ocean sounds or river sounds, or get one of those air purifiers. You could probably always use one of those. They make a little bit of noise, and it'll help drown some of that out. The other thing too is maybe the neighbor could try to keep the dog at night in another part of the apartment instead of right below your bed. But those are just practical suggestions. I really don't have a real good legal solution for you. If you want to talk to a lawyer that practices in residential leases, talk to them and see if maybe there's some clause in the contract in there that gives you some rights. But it seems like a pretty tough road to hoe for me.
Yeah, sure does.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, good luck, and
and don't use the dog food. That was just a joke.
Go get some sleep.
I won't.
Go get some sleep. All right, goodbye. 713.
Maybe you can get a job on the third shift.
Don't we have that dog lawyer we know?
Yeah, the pet cadet.
Let's send him to her.
Everything flows to poor Amy.
All right, let's see if we can do another. We have time for another email here. My child drew an inappropriate picture in kindergarten and received a trip not to the principal but to the elementary school counselor. Through that person's discussion with our child, a CPS complaint was filed against our part-time child care provider, listing our child as the victim of possible sexual abuse. The investigation is nearing completion.
What the kid drew?
I don't know. The investigation is nearing completion with no findings against the caregiver. We have taken our child to both her pediatrician and a specially trained psychologist who have indicated nothing happened to our child. Long story short, the contents of the complaint alarmed us, and we wish to see the written contents of the child's records with the counselor at the school is what she's talking about. He's talking about. She has indicated they are available by subpoena. And I'm going to tell you about this, Scott, in a minute, because she is flat wrong. I'm going to tell you about that in a minute. It's 11:29 on Talk Radio 950. This is the Mother's Day edition of Hearsay. 11:34 on Talk Radio 950. This is Hearsay. 713-212-5772. If you have a legal question, Brian and I have an answer. You better give us a call. Hey, John, you're on Talk Radio 950. Good morning.
Yes, I believe that the U.S. legal community, including this JAG officer, has, by their defense of these terrorists, has given placed us all in jeopardy.
Say that one more time. Wait, John, back up. You broke up right at the pinnacle of your statement there. So
okay. Well,
has placed us all in jeopardy.
I don't believe these guys that are being held, these terrorists, have rights. And the U.S. legal community, including this JAG officer, has placed more priority over the well-being of these guys who are committed to killing us over their own countrymen.
Well, perhaps you missed the part where he said he was ordered to represent this guy. So you would prefer... hang on, John. Would you prefer him to tell his supervising officer, I'm not following your order, and he'd go to prison? Would that be in the best interest of the country?
Well, the best interest of the country is the rights of the American citizens, not guys who are committed to our destruction.
Well, let me say something, John. I am as sensitive to this as you are, as far as these terrorists giving more rights than what they're entitled to and jeopardizing our national security. However, if we are either a nation of laws or we're not. And what this gentleman did, this lieutenant commander, was to follow his military command and did what he did in the best interest of his client, and he succeeded in doing that through the proper channels. If we ignore the proper channels in this country, then what do we have to worry about terrorists for?
Right.
Well, let me ask you this. Right now, Al-Qaeda has claimed that they hold the 3 U.S. servicemen captives. What are their rights?
Well, they probably don't have any, John, but that's what separates us from them.
Right.
Is that we do give rights. Now, I'm with you. I do not think that the full battery of the Bill of Rights ought to be afforded to these detainees in Guantanamo Bay. Chris and I have some disagreement about that. I think it's going to come down to some middle ground where they're entitled to some due process, but not the full breadth of what we receive as citizens here. And I understand that. It is a balance. Congress needs to act on this. The administration needs to act on this. It's not a settled issue at this point, but you can't just have the executive branch of the government
saying I'm above the law,
setting up penitentiaries, throwing people in there, and not doing anything about it.
And the whole problem here was the executive branch, the White House, the president saying I am above our Constitution because I'm the president. I can do whatever I want, and that is not what this country is founded on.
But it's not the obligation of the U.S. legal community to go in and to
John, it is the obligation of the lawyers in this country to stand up and fight for the Constitution. And when the president says,
this wasn't the ACLU that did this.
They don't have any rights.
When the president says I'm above the law, it takes someone as strong as Lieutenant Commander Swift to go to the U.S. Supreme Court and say my commander-in-chief cannot do this.
And he may have lost his career for it.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, but that guy did the biggest service for you that you will ever know, because you still have the right to call this show and say that guy was wrong. Thanks for calling, John. Appreciate it. 713-212-5772. Hi, Don. You're on Talk Radio 950. Good morning.
Tough act to follow, Don, but go ahead.
Don, go ahead. Don, are you with us? Wake up, Don.
I think it scared him off.
All right, I'll put Don on hold. See if you can find Don there, and we'll go to Matt. Hey, Matt, you're on Talk Radio 950.
Don, was it?
Matt?
Hey, guys, where you been?
Where have you been?
Hey, man, I haven't called you guys in about a year.
Yeah, we thought you were in rehab.
Well, I should be, but I'm not. But
You're using your only one phone call for the day to call us? Shouldn't you be calling your mom?
No, I'm doing just fine. Just thought I'd update you quick. The last time I called you, which was about a year ago, about the rogue cat in my yard that
causing
problems. Rumor has it
the cat died.
No, the cat is totally safe, but he now lives down by Hobby Airport, which is good for me because I have a friend down there that I see frequently. So, maybe I can see the cat sometime.
Did the cat get a ride to Hobby Airport?
Don't know anything about it. I know nothing.
One-way trip. Well, gosh, Matt, we've been very concerned about you and that cat situation. I'm glad you called to ease our mind about it.
Well, I got a question for you.
All right.
It came up this week. And I got a neighbor. He's a restaurant manager. He came over to me. He knows I'm a lawyer. We're friends. And he gives me this traffic ticket for one of his workers. And I said, well, just set it for jury trial like you always do and hope the cop doesn't show up. And he says, no, well, see, this guy's illegal. And I said, well, now, wait a minute. If he's illegal, then this can't be him on the driver's license. He goes, oh, no, that's him. Wait a minute. Either
he lied to the state and got a driver's license. That's what happened.
Is it that easy, Chris?
Yeah. What do you think they check? They don't do a DNA test.
You had to show up with a social security number.
Okay. What do you think that's hard to get?
Have you ever been down to Harlan?
I don't know.
It is not as hard. It is not as hard as people think to get a driver's license and a social security number.
It's only hard on people who are trying to follow the law. And that's what's so mind-boggling about it is that every time, for example, when they raised an issue about needing to show picture identification to vote, everybody got all up in arms about it. You can go down and cast a ballot without showing one single piece of identification in most polling places.
That's not true.
I go down and give them my voter registration. They don't ask me who I am.
That's your identification.
But they don't ask for a picture ID. Anybody in the world could pick up that piece of paper or go down there and tell them an address. I don't even have to carry my registration.
I don't even know where my voter's registration card is. I just give my driver's license.
I go in there and tell them my name. They look it up, and I get my ballot, and I go
vote. Oh, no, I've always had to show them something. Anyway, Matt, it's not that hard, unfortunately.
Okay, honestly, it was just, it's the topic of the day about illegal immigration. Is it really that easy to, because, my advice to him was like, hey, pal, if this isn't really you, well, guess what? Just walk away from it. But if it is you, how'd you get the license?
Right.
And if it is him and he's here illegally, why would he want to get into the process? Just let
I'm sure that's what the question is going to be when I actually talk to him. But like I said, I just wanted your thoughts.
But you know what? If that guy
knew about how in the world could this guy get a driver's
license? That's one of the oldest scams around. People just there's companies that you can go to that prepare fake driver's licenses.
But this one isn't fake. This is a real.
I haven't seen it, but I've seen the ticket.
Okay, there's also companies you can go to. I'm sure. I don't know them, but there's companies you can go to that will assist you in procuring those false documents.
Now, if he shows you that driver's license and it says George Finkelstein on it or something, you might wonder where he got it.
Okay. When did you guys move to Sunday mornings?
We moved, I don't know, three months ago in January, 4 months ago.
Okay, because I've been looking for you guys a couple of times. Okay.
Well, we have phones. It's not like we don't know each other. We do have phones, and you could have picked it up and called us.
Well, I only get one call a day, remember?
But now look, Matt,
Matt.
Just because you've missed some of these shows, you can go back and catch it all on
the podcast. Start right now. You can listen to every show.
Up. Take care, old man.
713-212-5772. It's 11:43 on Talk Radio 950. This is Hearsay. $11:45 on Talk Radio 950. Let's do another email here. We got a backlog of emails this week. Oh, we never did answer this question. Scott, what the school is talking about. This is the kid that they called down to the counselor said that
had drawn a picture, drew some awareness. Right. The counselor met with him. Right. Then filed a complaint with
CPS got involved.
Yeah.
And the school is saying you can only subpoena. What they're talking about is the Federal Educational Right to Privacy Act, or FERPA is what we generally refer to as the acronym. FERPA says that the school cannot release readily identifiable information about a student to anybody. And that includes
even a parent?
Well, that's what I'm getting to. That includes one teacher to another. That includes the counselor to the principal. They cannot release that information unless it is for a business or school related purpose. In other words, in teaching today, if Brian and I were in the same hallway, God forbid that we were teaching, but and I had a kid in there who was acting up, it is against the law for me to go down to Brian and say, you wouldn't believe the way this kid was acting. That's against the law.
You mean teacher to teacher? Can't comment on a student's?
Peer to peer. But
well, what's the rationale behind that?
There isn't any. But FERPA only applies, it's not a crime. The school can lose federal funding. FERPA does not apply to you, Scott. Okay? It does not apply to you. And there's a case that went all the way to the Texas Supreme Court on that very issue. And the Texas Supreme Court said you have to give the information to the parents.
The counselor had told him that he can get the records, but he has to subpoena it. What you're saying is he's entitled to it without a subpoena.
Without a subpoena. FERPA says that they have to give it up if you subpoena it, but FERPA also says they got to give it to you, Scott. So go down there and tell them again that Chris Tritico said you have to give me the stuff. All right? And you can use my name.
And we'd like to see a picture of the drawing.
Yeah, give us the drawing. You can use my name, Scott, and you can tell them, you called my show and I said that they have to give it to you. If that doesn't work, go hire yourself a lawyer and sue them because you get your attorney's fees back on
this
that.
This little kid could be the next Picasso.
713-212-5772. Let's see, who's next? This computer's all messed up and I don't know who's who. Scott, you're on Talk Radio 950. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm actually the same Scott that sent you that email.
Oh, well, there you go. There you go.
So let me explain to you what the school has told us, because I totally understand what you're saying, and that jives with what I read on the all-knowing Internet. They said FERPA applies to her disciplinary records, her nursing records, her educational records, but this counselor, because of the nature of her talking with the child, may take notes that are specific, like a doctor's record.
Oh, they're claiming that this is under the
HIPAA,
and I don't believe that HIPAA prevents a parent from getting a child's records.
HIPAA wouldn't prevent you from getting your own records. A doctor can say, I can't give these to you because you it's protected by HIPAA, and I think the same would apply to a child if that's what they're relying on. You may have to sign an authorization or something, but I don't see why you can't get them.
We've actually signed an authorization to have the records sent to our doctor. And,
okay, are you comfortable telling me over the air what district this is?
Pearland ISD.
All right. The one I don't know anybody at. I practice some in this field, Scott, but I don't know anybody at Pearland. Here's what I think you're going to have to do. And I think you ought to be able to get that. I think you ought to be able to see it. And I think you ought to be able to take it to other counselors if your child is still in counseling. And so what I think that you're going to have to do at this point is either have your child's private counselor send a request over there for the records. Let's see if that works.
No, that did not work.
Okay. Then I think you're going to have to hire a lawyer and sue them. All right. You can send them a Freedom of Information Act request for your child's records. When they deny that, you can take them into state district court, and you are entitled to your attorney's fees on that. And a good friend of mine, Dave Feldman, who represents school districts, fought that very issue with Spring ISD all the way to the Texas Supreme Court, and they ended up not only giving those people the records they wanted, but paying them a lot of money in attorney's fees for fighting a stupid argument.
Is a local school district subject to FOIA?
Yes.
Okay,
absolutely.
It's not a voluntary thing. They have to comply.
Absolutely. So you send them a Freedom of Information Act request asking for that, and then go hire yourself a lawyer, okay?
Okay, may I ask one more question that's related?
Real quick.
Well, because you bring up the point, we've never really had to have a family attorney before. Is there one that you can recommend for this area?
We don't make recommendations over the air. It's not fair to all the other lawyers out there, and because of state bar rules, we don't make recommendations over the air.
Will the Bar Association have a
call the Houston Bar Association and ask them to make you some recommendations.
In education law, if there's a subcategory for education law.
School law.
And
okay.
If they don't, then it's maybe some administrative law.
But you want school law, okay?
All right, I appreciate it.
Good luck, Scott. 713-212-5772. It's 1150 on Talk Radio 950. This is Hearsay. Talk Radio 950. It's Hearsay with Chris and Brian. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. Let's take this one last call, then we'll wrap the show up. Hey, John, you're on Talk Radio 950. Good morning.
Thanks for taking my call. Listen, I work for a company I've been working for about 13 years in sales, and there's about 16 of us that work there, and I get $10.99 each year. And I can only work for this company and no one else. They make you attend meetings.
You have a written contract?
As far as what?
A non-compete clause? Why do you say you can't work for anybody else?
Do you have a written contract with them?
Yes, and it's a verbal contract. You get fired if you work for anybody else.
Okay, so it's not something that's in writing. You don't have a written non-compete. They've just told you that if you go to work for anybody else, what are they going to do to you if you work for someone else?
Well, you're going to get fired.
Well, if you're working for someone else, never mind. What's your question?
Well, what I'm saying is, do I have any retribution on this? Because I have to go along with their procedures. We have to do it exactly their way. They follow up on us, make sure we're doing it their way. They're a well-known company in the community.
If you're not a municipal employee, or if you don't have a written contract with them, then you're an employee at will. And if you're not following their procedures, they can fire you. And in fact, they can fire you even if you are following the procedures. You don't have in an employment at will state like Texas, you can be fired for good reason, bad reason, or no reason, as long as it's not rising to the level of a federal violation on discrimination grounds.
Even though you're a self-employed person, but actually they can treat you as an employee.
Well, you have less rights as a self-employed person because you're a contract employee at that point, and they can cease to do business.
Yes, as an independent contractor, if that's what you are, they can just say, we're not using you anymore. Thank you.
In the absence of a contract.
But anyway.
Here's your concern. I think I understand your concern. I'm an independent contractor, and they can let me go whenever I want, but they say their policy is I can't go sell for other people at the same time I'm selling for them, and that's not fair. Is that what you're saying?
Well, yes, and then you have to attend their meetings. You have to do exactly what they do. You
right.
Go along with their
and you know what? If you don't like their policies, you can go somewhere else. That's the way it is.
And it sounds like to me that they're really approaching the line where you may be an employee.
That's right.
Despite what they call you.
I am an employee, but the only reason is because the fact that they don't have to pay the compensation to the government.
And that's only really an issue if you fail to pay your taxes. Where's the IRS going to go, to you or to them? And they may deem you to be an employee and require them to pay it. But that's only a tax issue.
But it's a big tax issue.
But in your situation, even if you established yourself as an employee, you're not going to be granted any more rights other than the fact that they should have been contributing to your.
Except they would have to pay
your 7.5%.
Right,
and
so
Social Security.
They may owe you 7.5% for the last 15 years, whatever you said.
And
if you've been about getting in contact with somebody that
contact the Department of
Labor.
The Department of Labor in Washington.
The Wage and Hour Division. They should have local offices here that would help you with that. The other thing too, if they're not paying your taxes and if you've been working over 40 hours a week and you can document that, they may have some big problems there if you can establish yourself as an employee, and that's a real gray area. And I think there's 15 or so factors that the IRS looks at to determine whether you're an employee or not. The fact that they call you a contractor and give you a 1099 is not dispositive of that.
And going to meetings, mandatory meetings where they tell you how to do your job, it may be dispositive in a negative way to the company. In other words, that may be evidence.
Will fit into that factor.
Yeah.
One of the things
that's evidence that you're an employee.
The things that the IRS would look at is, are they directing and controlling the work? Are they telling you how to do your job? Do you have to be certain places at certain times? Are they providing you tools of the trade? Do they give you, instruction about how you're supposed to do things? All those factors go into that determination.
Well, that's all the above. Exactly what you said.
Okay, what you need to do is, and this is free, so contact the Department of Labor. I just get on the internet and type in U.S. Department of Labor, and they have a wage and hour division. On their webpage, you can find wage and hour issues, and you should be able to find out if there is a local Houston office.
Or if you have a lot of similarly situated colleagues, you might want to think about going to a lawyer and seeing if someone is willing to take this case. And I think the attractiveness of the case will increase if there are multiple potential participants.
Appreciate it.
All right, good luck.
Good luck to you on that. Employers make that mistake all the time. They think if they call you an independent contractor and send you a 1099 instead of a W-2
they don't have to pay taxes.
That they're in the clear.
And the thing that employers are trying to do is save from having to pay that 7.5%.
And all the other benefits an employee would get, health care and all those other things that their regular employees may get. And I understand the cost savings part of it, but if they're independent contractors, they should be independent.
Right. Much thanks to Lieutenant Commander Charlie Swift for coming in and talking with us today. That was a very intriguing discussion in the first hour. If you didn't hear it, go to 950kprc.com and check out the podcast. It should be up tomorrow.
I'm glad he could set you straight on things.
Happy Mother's Day to every mother out there. If you haven't seen your mother yet today, then go right now. All right, go right now and give your mother a kiss and tell her how much you love her.
And
That's
happy
it.
Mother's Day, Nina. I hope you're down there waiting for me. Hope I hadn't made you mad.
Stay tuned for Dr. Joe Galati. Have a great day.